For the fifth step, let's set up certificate services and configure your domain controller into the role of a certificate authority. Now I need to set up a certificate services so we can generate a certificate to use for the health certificates and the NAP process.
And hold on, let me get my door gun. I got my door gun now. So you're in Padawan. Now we must configure another role. The third role to configure certificate services. Go to Server Manager. Well,
So I'm going to open up Server Manager. And when I do, I want to go to roles and I want to add a role, sesame seed, Kaiser sourdough baked, and alrighty then. And I'm going to add a role and serve a role. And now I want to do Active Directory Certificate Services. And be aware when you do this, you cannot change your host name, because otherwise it would be too easy to counterfeit certificate services, and we won't get into that this time, but yeah. So anyway, okay, so remember, we've set up Active Directory, we did DC promo, set up our domain, Active Directory, we domain controller, all of that. We set up DHCP. That's out there, that's listening, that's giving out IPs, and now I'm implementing certificate services. I can choose, in this case I want to do a certification authority, respect my authority, and certification authority, web enrollment. You can choose to do that, and you don't really, I can I really just need a certification authority. If I were going to, I have several other videos, guys, dealing with this, just setting up certificate services. So again, I'm going to make the assumption that this is not the first time you've done this, and that you know what it's for, and when you would and not, would and would not use it. So on that assumption, I'm just, to save time, good grief, this thing is going to be way too long as it is. So again, if you need further explanation, please go find these videos on networkingprogramming.com or on the YouTube channel, and they will explain certificate services and those features and things there. Alright, so I've got enterprise and I've got standalone. In this case, standalone would be if I were peer-to-peer and I weren't using Active Directory, but I'm not, so I'm using Active Directory, and I've run DC promo, and therefore I want to choose enterprise. I could do a root or a subordinate. Now typically I would set up a root, and then I would use that root to set up subordinates, and subordinates themselves would issue their certificates, but I can't do that, or I want to be brief as I can. So I'm going to skip the normal process that I should follow. We're just going to use a root certificate authority. I'm going to choose next. Create a new private key. Yes, I want to do that. Secure handshake algorithm, 2048 key character. I'm going to go with all the defaults there. RSA, pretty much industry standard. Here's the LDAP string or context. In this case, my domain component, host name. And I'm going to go click next. Go with the default 5 years. Next. Certificate log, and I'm going to go with the defaults there. Next. And I'm going to click on install.
Alright, so again, so far I set up Active Directory by using DC promo and directory services, and then we set up DHCP, and then we set up certificate services, and when we're done, then, and only then, we'll be at the point where we'll be ready to actually implement a network policy server. Can't get the word, and a word, and a word, can't get the word, and a word. Alright, so I'm going to say another, maybe I'm not. But I have time. Alright, never mind. Come on.
There once was this old town, and they had a community center that needed painting. And of course they contracted the lowest bidder, and they found this painter who, well, let's just say he liked to cut corners. So they hired him and paid him a certain amount of money. He agreed to paint the whole town hall. Well, the painter, thinking that, he'd increase his profit margin, decided that he'd use a lot more paint thinner, since that was much cheaper than the actual paint itself. And so he sent the paint out more than he should have, like, 3 times thinner than it normally would be. And so he completed the job. He painted this community service center. It was all painted. People were happy. He was happy, and he increased his profit margin. He made like twice as much profit as he would normally make, because he didn't use paint. He just sent it out and used a lot more paint thinner. Well, he went home and everything was fine until about 3 days later it started to rain, and the paint hadn't really cured or dried, and because it was thinned out so much, it began to run in splashes all down the walls of the community center. And the people at the town hall, they were of course upset, and they realized they'd been ripped off, so they called the painter and they're like, "This is ridiculous. You need to refund our money, give us our money back." And the painter, he pretty much had no choice. He knew he had to refund their money, or they would just take him to court and get it back anyway, so he did. And then at that point he just felt disgusted and in despair, because here he was tired. He had spent days and days painting this community center, and he needed the money to pay his bills, he thought he was, you know, going to have a hefty little profit there because he used, you know, thinned the paint out and used more paint thinner than he should have, and instead now he has like no money, had to give it all back, and you know, he's tired and he can't pay his bills, so he's absolutely distraught and his reputation's mud, and he knows nobody in town will trust him anymore. And he just felt really, really down, and he just decided, you know, he was just going to fall on his knees and pray to God because he didn't know anything else he could do. So he did. He falls on his knees and he prays to God. And by the way, everything's good. You can click on close and there's our certificate services. So he falls on his knees and he prays and he says, Lord, I know I sinned. I did wrong. I shouldn't have tried to rip, you know, my customers off. I shouldn't have cut corners and put too much thinner in the paint and all to save money and all. And, you know, he's like, God, please help me. What can I do, God? Help me out here. Please give me some wisdom about this, God. And just when he thought that, you know, God wasn't listening and he wasn't going to answer him, all of a sudden the clouds parted and this big ray of light burst down and shone upon him, and his whole face was illuminated, and this big booming thundering voice said, my son, repaint and sin no more.
Get it? Repaint and send no more, like repent and send no more. But okay, well, anyway, I probably didn't have to explain it, but look, I'm in dork, so I thought you might need help like me, so okay.
The Napoleon Dynamite of Active Directory. Oh yeah.
Anyway, alright, so we have everything set up here, DHCP, DNS, and our certificate services. The main controllers, all that is configured, all that is installed, all that is
There, waiting, set up and ready to go. Now we can set up our network policy server.
6. Set up network policy services by configuring your 2008 server into the role of a network policy server. So once again, I'm going to open up Server Manager. And this time I want to implement NPS. So I'm going to go to Roles. And 5 minutes later, when it's done collecting data, I want to add a role and server role. And this time it's Network Policy and Access Services. Oh yeah. And I'm going to click on Next. I'm going to click on Next. And then notice what I can do. Well, obviously you need a network policy server. So I want to choose that network policy server. And I want to do Health and Registration Authority or Authority. Expect my authority. I'm going to add the required role services for Health Registration Authority. And these two here, and again, all of these other options, there are other videos and tutorials on networkingprogramming.com and on YouTube, and you can check them out if you want, but I'm once again going to make the assumption that you realize we don't need that because we're trying to focus on that because this tutorial is already going to be way too long. Even if I put everything on fast forward, and I will, but let's go. So next, let's try to keep it brief, baby. So using an existing remote CA, using in this case, yes. I don't want to use remote CA. In this case, use the local CA, and that's the certificate authority that we just set up, certificate authority. So I'm going to say next. Use my own certificate, yeah, baby. My local certificate store. Use the characteristics to be authenticated as members of the domain. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to click on next. And this is my certificate. Ooh, my certificate issued by Battlestars.Galactica. And the certificate authority, my 5-year expiration date that we just set up. Oh yeah, so I'm going to choose that. And root and enterprise and next and my own certificate. And
we'll go with all the defaults right up here. And we can do, let's see, network policy server. Yeah, we'll just choose, let's see, and then we add this, fine,
click on next. And we'll click on install.
Installing, old man is falling. Help, I'm falling and I can't get up. Help me, help me.
Pour me another cup of this fine brew coffee. Super caffeinated beverage, divine nectar of the gods.
Oh, coffee. Sweet juice. Java of life. Oh, give me your alertness. Wake me up. Make me live life.
Suck the marrow. Oh yeah. Burn the midnight oil.
Oh yeah. Up all night. Not gonna go to sleep.
Tasty.
With just a hint of nutmeg. Come on.
Twas the night before nap, and all through the house. Only Charles was awake. That insomniac louse. He stirred, and he shifted in his makeshift chair.
He sipped on his coffee and breathed in the air and watched the hourglass turn round and round and listened to the snores coming from his hound. And finally it finished, and on close did he click. It was almost Christmas. Time for old Saint Nick.
Anyway, alright, so now we have network policy, our network policy and access services set up. 7. Configure your desired rules in the Windows Security Health Validator of NPS. So now with the network policy server and the Health Registration Authority rules implemented, I'm going to add another icon to my icon farm, and I'm going to go to Administrative Tools, and I want to go to Network Policy Server. I mean, you don't have to do this. You could access it from the menu if you want, but whatever your preference is. I'm going to open it, and for starters, let's just deal with the default Windows Security Health Validator. And so I'm going to open this up and notice the different nodes here, but you would want to go to, under Network Policy Server, go to Network Access Protection, or NAP. You want to select System Health Validators. And, boy, we're running really slow here. Let me get a chance to catch up. And then I want to select Windows Security Health Validator. I'm going to right-click on it. And I want to select Properties. And these are the properties that are available. And I want to click on Configure. When I click on Configure, notice the options here, whether I have Windows XP or Windows Vista, which would also apply for Windows 7, either one. But notice, a firewall must be enabled, antivirus application is on, is up to date, automatic updating is enabled. All these things, all these conditions, I have all that checked. All these conditions would have to be met in order for that XP client to get a valid health certificate, and therefore be allowed on the network, or whatever behavior I chose to specify to function with NAP and my health certificates. So in Windows Vista and Windows 7, again, and I'm using a trial version, let me kill that right there. Okay, so again, the same thing here for my Windows 7 and Vista clients. They'd have to have antivirus software, anti-spyware like Windows Defender, and whatever, Avast or some compatible antivirus software with server, firewall enabled, or compatible Windows 7 or whatever I was using there in Vista, automatic updating. So these are the rules that we can either check or uncheck to function with NAP. Okay, so that being said, configure. I'm just going to choose these options by default, so they need to have all these enabled: antivirus software, automatic update, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. Well, as a matter of fact, to save me a download, I'm just going to say this. None of that will be required. I'm going to say a firewall is enabled for all network connections, and that way, if they disable the firewall, then they won't meet the policy conditions. It'll just be a quick, simple, easy way to test it, I suppose. And then let's go through and look at a few of these other options here. So let's see, that'll do for the default. I'm going to go click on OK. For the 8th step, let's configure health policies and network policies to work with issued health certificates. Let's create a health and network policy for secure and non-secure clients. The secure clients will of course be those who meet our NAP requirements. In other words, they have a firewall enabled. It could be antivirus and whatever else, but we've simplified it down to just a firewall just to show how NAP works. So they'll be secure, they meet the requirements, they'll be allowed on the network, they'll get one scope of addresses. Then we'll create another scope and another set of addresses, and maybe group policy that works with non-secure clients. That is, those clients that fail or do not meet our NAP requirements. They don't have a firewall enabled and configured. So I'm going to go open up Network Policy Server. And let me pull this down here. And this time I want to go to Policies. So I'm going to go up here. And the very first one we'll do, let's go to Health Policies. And then in Health Policies, I'm going to make a new policy.
And policy name is going to be Secure Battlestar. That'll be our policy name. And that's way too many keys, isn't it? Unless you just like that little star, like a rattlesnake.
Alright, so Secure Battlestar will be the name. And let's select client passes all SHV checks. Notice the options here, but I want to go with the default client passes all SHV checks, because in this case this will be that they meet the NAP requirements. So I'm going to go ahead and select that option, and let's see. Let's go ahead and check Windows Security Health Validator, what we selected, our policy settings. Okay, and then I'm going to click on OK. And there's our secure Battlestar, our health policy. And I'm going to go to network policies this time. And I'm going to right click on network policies and make a new one. And in this case, what am I going to choose for a policy name? I'm going to say secure Battlestar full access. I guess that's kind of a long name, but oh well. And I'm going to go ahead and click on next. I'll go with the defaults there. And I want to add a condition. In this case, I want to specify the health policy that we just created. So I'm going to click on add, and I want to scroll down as soon as my server, my incredibly slow virtual machine, gives me the, okay, here we go, finally. Health policies, I want to click add, and notice there's secure Battlestar that we just created. So I'm going to click on OK. And there it shows up, health policies, secure Battlestar. Okay. And then I want to go ahead and click next. And then in this case, I want to go with the default access granted. Okay, on this one. And let's see. I want to go to configure authentication methods. Let me go. This is the configure authentication methods screen. And in this case, I only want to basically use the perform machine health check. I don't really want to do anything else here other than just perform machine health check only. So that's really the only option that I need. I'm going to leave all these other guys unchecked here. Again, we're trying to simplify this and hopefully reduce what's going to still be a super long, probably boring tutorial. But we'll try to make it as fun and short as we can, and yet thorough, hopefully still thorough. So accept the defaults. Let's go and accept, it's just going to perform a machine health check only. Right, so machine health check only. And let's see, let me go with the defaults on the configure constraints. I'm not really going to go with anything there. Configure settings, let's do NAP enforcement. So I'm going to click NAP enforcement right here. And let's see, allow full network access. It's the default, but you just want to make sure in this case, remember this is for the clients that meet the NAP requirements. They're the secure ones. So yes, we want to allow them full network access in this case. And next, and then finish. Okay. So now I have a health policy, secure Battlestar, and a network policy that implements the health policy for my NAP server. Alright, so network, and it's in place. It's there. So that takes care of these secure clients, and next we'll need to work on the non-secure clients. Note, we will configure options for non-secure clients that do not meet NPS requirements in two different examples. The first example will configure non-secure clients that do not meet NPS requirements with restricted network access via DHCP, though they will still be able to obtain an IP address. The second example will configure non-secure clients that do not meet NPS requirements so that they cannot obtain an IP address at all or access the network via DHCP. We'll begin with example 1, configuring non-secure clients that do not meet NPS requirements with restricted network access via DHCP, though they will still be able to obtain an IP address. So now with our secure client set, let's do our non-secure. So again, I'm going to make another health policy, so right-click and new. And let's see, what do we call the other one? Secure Battlestar. And we could call this one non-secure.
Or if we wanted to be kind of cutesy, we could call it insecure. But in this case, non-secure
Battlestars.
And remember that the last time when we were doing it for the clients that do meet the NAP requirements, that health policy and network policy, and we went with the default, and that was that client passes all SHV checks. In this case, we're going to change it to client fails all SHV checks. Okay, because this is for the clients that don't meet our NAP policy. And again, we want to select Windows Security Health Validator, and I'm going to click on OK. All right, so now we have secure Battlestar and non-secure Battlestars.
I probably should have made that plural, and here, that's annoying. I don't know why, but it's just...
So secure Battlestar, non-secure Battlestar, whatever. All right, so now same thing. We want to make a new network policy. All right, so under network policies, and we're going to type.
Let's see, what do we call the last one? Secure Battlestar full access, and this will be non-secure. Maybe hit the underscore there. Battlestar restricted access. All right. So this one was secure Battlestar full access. This will be non-secure Battlestar restricted access. I mean, you can call it banana, it doesn't matter, but we should kind of name it something for what it does or what it is, right? So it's easy to see them.
All right. So and I'm going to go with the defaults. Let me yank this up here so you guys can see. All right, go with the defaults there. And again, I need to specify conditions, and I need to specify a health policy. So I'm going to click on Add and scroll down. And let me go to Health Policy. I'm going to click Add. And again, I want to choose non-secure Battlestar in this example. So it's a non-secure Battlestar. I'm going to click on Next. And let's see, in this case, I could choose access denied if I wanted to deny access, or I could choose access granted if I wanted to give it stop, bad kitty, no, bad kitty. That's not part of it. Shh, hush. You scratch on my furniture. Yes, you'll have to deal with bad kitties when you're setting up network access policies. Let's make a policy to keep bad kitties from scratching the furniture. That's what we ought to do. Anyway, in this case, I could say access denied if I just wanted to kick people off and not give them any access, or I could give them limited access on a separate subnet. In this case, this is the option we're going to choose. So we will say access granted, and then I'm going to click on next, but it's going to be a restricted scope, all right, or restricted configuration. So configure authentication methods. And I'm just going to say perform machine health check only, just like we did before. Purpose being we're trying to lessen simplify this tutorial and lessen the amount of time that it takes to go through everything. Let me go and click on next. So it's just going to perform a machine health check. And under configure constraints, in this case, we'll just go with the defaults here. Let's go to NAP enforcement here on the configure settings page, and let's check allow limited access. Instead of full network access, we're going to choose this option, not the default, but this option, allow limited access. Non-compliant clients are allowed access only to a restricted network for updates, things like that. And this would allow them to heal themselves if possible. Remediation services can have these clients heal themselves so that if they don't meet the NAP policy, they could meet the NAP policy later. Good kitty cat. Alright, so I would check that option, and I'm going to click on next, and I'm going to click on finish. Okay, and we're done with this part of our project. 9. Configure your DHCP server settings to work with NAP and NPS. Okay, so now that we have done all of these things, we can go to the DHCP server now and configure it to work with NAP. Let me drag this back down here, and we'll go to our DHCP server, and we've set up our network and health policies. And we've set up NAP and configured our network policy server. All the things are in place. So now it's time to go to the DHCP server, and we're going to go to our IP version for scope. Let me open this up here. Remember our scope here was Colonial Warriors, so we have our scope selected there, and in this case I'm going to right click and I'm going to go into properties, and notice there's this tab here, network access protection, and I can choose to enable it for the scope. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to choose that. I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to say use a default network access protection profile, which we just set up. So I'm going to click on OK, and we're all set. So just remember that once you get that set up and you're utilizing NAP with DHCP, which is what you should be doing, that's kind of the, if you want all of the, the full features of NAP, network access protection, then you need to enable it on the DHCP server, like we did here, when you're all done for that scope of IP addresses. Okie dokie. So that's all in place, and now we just need to set up the client, okay? And remember that in order to get or lease an IP from our server, from the DHCP server, it's going to have to meet the bare minimum requirement that we set, which was that it has to have a firewall. So we'll use that as the litmus paper to test our NAP policy, our health and network policy. So with the firewall enabled, we should have no problem leasing an IP and connecting to the network. What if clients don't have their firewall enabled? In example 1, they will be given restricted network access. In example 2, they won't even be allowed to lease an IP address.